In today's Leeds news, international call-ups, Ranić on Wöber inclusion, 25-26 kit details linked, national media on Leeds away form, Bamford unhappy with cameo, and low on Greenwood transfer. Morning folks, Jay here, Thursday morning the 7th of November with your Leeds United news. We'll try and get through this as quickly as possible with as little cuts as we can. Not a good night at the office last night for Leeds United. We will have a full review of the game tonight, 8:30pm live on the channel. Myself and Jerry McNamee and possibly some other guests as well to talk about the game. But there's a bit of stuff to get stuck into today. We've got some international call-ups and clarification around one or two of them. The Adidas kits for next season for Leeds. Some details on the home and third strip have started to leak, as well as some frustrated figures that were caught after the match finished last night. And Pat Bamford, and not the only one who didn't seem happy with how things went last night, and we'll get to that in a sec. But we'll start off with the international call-ups, and Joe Rodon, Dan James and Karl Darlow have all been called up by the Welsh FA for games against Turkey and Iceland next week. Manor Solomon is included in the Israeli side for their games against France and Belgium, despite the fact he's only had a handful of minutes since returning from injury. Max Verber has also been called up by the Austrian national side, despite not being available for Leeds United since the past international break and only being recalled to the bench in the last two games. He will go up for their squad for the games against Kazakhstan and Slovenia. Junior Firpo called up by the Dominican Republic for games in the CONCACAF Nations League games. It's the Nation League window. It's not a massively important one. You'd hope that a bit of common sense would prevail on a few of these. Leeds will be worried about a couple, but one that we want to talk about is the inclusion of Max Verber in Ralf Rangnick's squad. Now, you might not be interested in anything to do with Max Verber, but Joe Rodon is sitting one yellow card away from a suspension, and the options will be a Max Verber or a James DeBio, and I'm sure everyone's going to say stick DeBio in first, but we are still talking about an international level defender who's been included in the Austrian national side, despite the fact he hasn't played any football since getting injured while on international duty with the Austrian national side. Wöber has only made the bench in the last two games for Leeds United, and Daniel Farke has said that the player is fit enough to be included in the squad, but that doesn't mean that he's fit enough to play games. Ranić, however, seems to have heard that and ignored it, and has had to defend his inclusion in the squad in recent weeks. Speaking to the media, Ranić on the call-up question said the following: Max started training again at Leeds a week ago. We don't have many players in that position. I'm not sure if he did hear the comments from Daniel Farke and has decided to just take him anyway, but Farke did say just because you've trained doesn't mean you can play 90 minutes, and if they are light in that area, it's likely Verber will play some minutes. Leeds will watch this international window with very close eye, with injury concerns or at least doubts over Dan James, Manor Solomon and Max Verber, and Leeds will not want a similar situation from the last international break where they come back with 3 or 4 of their key players missing for several weeks. Remember, Joe Rodon, as I said, is still sitting one yellow card away from a suspension. Willie Gnonto is one yellow card away from a suspension, and Leeds will want to have their wide players and their centre-back cover available should those players pick up an additional yellow card. Moving on to next season's kit details, and we've had some news come out. It's early for this, but it is the time of the year where clubs start to decide on their patterns, designs for the following season. Usually December is when all of that is locked down, and then we see them come out in April, May time or June time. We have started to see some detail come out on the Leeds United home and third kits for next season. This year brought a pretty plain looking Leeds kit, a very generic Adidas template, different from last season where we had the peacock design on the away strip and we had the peacock embossed on the home strip. Well, next season looks like we might be going back to something a little bit similar to that, according to our footy headlines as an exclusive, and they're usually on the money with this. Leeds shirt next season will be inspired by design elements from the Low Fields tunnel. The main colour of the kit will naturally be white. Footy Insider says that the accent colours haven't been leaked yet, but that Leeds will be using design elements from the Low Field tunnel and likely to be a tonal embossed pattern on the shirt. So rather than seeing the yellow and blue tiles from Low Fields tunnel, it might just be a tiled design that leans into that. Admiral and Square Ball did do a Low Fields run shirt recently. It's not going to look like that because it's a white shirt, so it just gives you an idea of the design that they could potentially use on that. But Leeds away shirt details are also visible as well. The away strip for next season will be predominantly blue and white. Again, no additional colours confirmed on that, but Leeds will have a blue and white second strip, a white Low Fields inspired home shirt, as well as a third kit for next season have also been leaked as well. And Footy Insider are claiming that Leeds United's third kit for next season will be predominantly black. Now, whether that's a similar black that we have, the black and orange in the Premier League, or the black Kappa shirt, which I'm personally a very big fan of, we'll have to wait and see. They also said the accent colour on this hasn't been confirmed, but that it is likely that Leeds will go with a bright colour to offset the black in this. No design elements are available just yet, but we will start to see Adidas's template of shirts leak out over the next coming weeks into December, and we can start to have an idea of what the basic shape and look of the shirt will be outside of 2 shoulders, arms and a hole for your neck. There'll be a bit more detail on that. But this is the first kit since the new Leeds United and Adidas agreement has been made. And the deal itself is said to be worth £10 million per season for Leeds United. It doesn't put them in the upper bracket of Adidas clubs. Newcastle United's deal is rumoured to be in around £30 million a year. But given where we are right now in the Championship, £10 million deal for this season, even from a club, from a supplier, is a big deal. And it's a lot of money for Leeds. Moving on to last night, and the national media have been having their say on Leeds United's performance last night, and a poor night last night. But this is a performance that we've seen from this Leeds United team before, and it's nothing new. Leeds' 8-game unbeaten run on the road came to a crashing halt last night at 1-0 defeat against Millwall, and last night marked Leeds' 5th time in all competitions this season where Leeds have gone behind and have failed to be able to take 3 points from the game. The national media have been having their say on the result and the performances, and we'll start with The Athletic. And Nancy Froston said the Leeds away form is not what is needed if they want to get promoted this season, and that when Leeds are not in their groove, it's usually down to a low block situation. And Leeds were described by Nancy Froston last night as second best. Leeds had loads of possession but created very, very little. The better chances in the game went to Millwall, scoring the goal from a predictable free kick, and also nearly scoring a second one when Matteo Joseph headed onto the post, which was a lucky clearance in the end of things, but Leeds weren't able to get back into that game. Sky Sports on the game basically focused on Millwall, and they gave praise to Millwall's game plan and said it worked perfectly, and that Millwall have taken more points in the Championship since February than any other team in the league. Leeds away form has only managed to bring in 10 points from a possible 21 points available so far this season, and Leeds missing opportunities in away games to turn draws into wins and defeats into draws was what really affected Leeds last season, and Leeds missing out on these opportunities might come back to cost them again when Leeds will want to sort out the away form. Being unbeaten is great until you lose a game, and then the draws make it into a, well, you haven't won on the road, or you haven't picked up as many points as you should have picked up, so it's going to have to be something that Leeds look at. Moving on to some after the game moments that were picked up last night, and Patrick Bamford was seen after the final whistle, but not the only one. Not too happy with how things are going. Daniel Farke went full plan B last night, bringing on Matteo Joseph and Pat Bamford to join Joel Pirro as he went with 5 attacking players up front, and we all know what happens when Leeds do that. There's too many players in the way, everyone gets in each other's way, and Leeds produce little to no chances, and that happened again last night, and it didn't work again. I think it's only ever worked once, and that was Norwich away last season possibly. But despite the fact that it hasn't worked, Daniel Farke went and did it anyway, and Leeds Live have shared some off-camera moments that weren't picked up last night that are worth looking into. The quote from Leeds Live says the following: Patrick Bamford did not have long on the field to have any real impact on Wednesday's match. That did not ease the pain of the loss, however, as the situation went off after full time. He was seen slapping the outreached hands of teammates, but in a highly exaggerated, frustrated manner with a big swing each time. Pat wasn't the only player who looked annoyed and frustrated with decisions that were made last night. Joe Rothwell coming off the park for the second game in a row in the 70th minute, now looking like the Glenn Kamara sacrificial lamb of last season, of when there's a substitution needed, he's the obvious one to come off. And outside of the corners last night, which it's Leeds, so at this point, what's the point even talking about corners? But outside of that, I thought Joe Rothwell was having a really, really good game and was one of the only few players at Leeds who was actually trying to drive forward with the ball from the middle of the park when he got it. But as he was coming off the park last night, he looked really annoyed and he pushed past all the outstretched hands of the coaching staff, not acknowledging the manager. And that's the second game in a row where Rothwell's looked really annoyed coming off the park. That midfield partnership for me wasn't the issue last night, and are doing fine. And for me, wasn't the substitution that I would have made in that game. But Daniel Farke always appears to have set changes in mind, and they kick off in the 70th minute. And last season it was Glenn Kamara, this season it's Joe Rothwell, but it's the same position, the same player, although one of them is a progressive player, one of them wasn't. So Leeds taking off the more progressive player last night. Willie Gnonto was also seen shaking his head and complaining as he was removed last night from the game. A frustrating game for Gnonto last night. Not that he was great by any stretch of the imagination, but he did work hard. He does have moments in him, but he also cut a frustrated figure leaving the park. And you'd wonder, are these just individual in the moment reactions? Or is there something bigger here, and is this starting to seep into a dressing room? If you've got 3 or 4 players starting to look really unhappy with decisions the manager's making, does that start to upset the apple cart in the dressing room? We'll have to wait and see if that is the case. It might be nothing. It could very simply just be a player's instant reaction, and that's okay. And players are frustrated when they get taken off in games, and most managers won't have an issue with that because they care. But we'll have to wait and see if it's a little bit more than that in the coming weeks. Leeds will want to get back to winning ways on Saturday with 3 points, and nothing less than 3 points will be acceptable on Saturday after a really poor game last night. But then finish off on a highlight, a high point. Well, not for a player that's at Leeds right now, but a player that Leeds own who's having a decent time of things right now. And Sam Greenwood is having a very good run at the moment with Preston North End, and seems to have found a home right now that ticks all the boxes from his perspective. Preston's boss Ryan Lowe is also incredibly happy with the player, and I said he's very impressed with his work ethic, and spoke about how hard they tried to get him in the summer and how the loan is going so far. And on the topic, Lowe said the following: Definitely, we worked our socks off all summer to get him in on loan, and he's paying dividends now. He's doing a fantastic job scoring goals, and it's a fantastic area for him to hit the target. We were attracted because of his set pieces, his left foot, right foot, free kicks, and also his wide free kicks. Greenwood's issue last season at Middlesbrough was consistency and keeping that going. He started last year with Middlesbrough on fire, and the small 1.5 million buyout, I think, was in the contract. Seemed like Leeds were shortchanging themselves, but Greenwood went off the boil and ended up coming back to Leeds in the summer without a permanent move to Middlesbrough. And so far, so good at Preston. And you'd wonder, is the extra attention he's getting from Ryan Lowe helping the development of the player? 22 years of age right now. If he can sort the consistency, there's a very good player in Sam Greenwood. He has all the gifts a footballer wants in the world in terms of footballing ability. It's just the consistency and the fitness. And if he can get that right and the intelligence side of things right, there's a smashing player. Maybe he goes back to Leeds and maybe he makes an impact down the road, or maybe he ends up at Preston full time. But there's definitely a player who could do it at this level in the Championship, at a certain level in the league. Remains to be seen what that is right now. Folks, that'll be it for me today. Massive thanks as always for supporting the channel. I will be back tonight 8:30 with the live stream for the match review for the Millwall versus Leeds game. If you want to relive all of that again, we'll have Jerry McNamee in the house, and we'll also have somebody else on as well to flesh out the panel just a little bit. You can check that out later on. I will talk to you then. See you later. Bye.